too far away. Okay. I'm just telling you about the sighting.
Fair enough.
So, those are the sightings we know about. Plus, as I said, we have track camera footage of jaguars in Oklahoma. And jaguars are not native to Oklahoma, so... Ooh. Now, in some cases, they think animals' range changes after a while. Like, the jaguars might be moving east for whatever reason, following prey or whatever, or it's just more dangerous where they were. So animals do change their prey after a while.
They get sick of eating the same thing.
Yeah. So they think that could explain some of it, and some of it they think is misidentification, and some of it is domesticated cats or feral cats, which feral cats, after a couple generations of not being domesticated, they do tend to get bigger.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's just kind of the natural order of things, isn't it? Like, you know, adapt, adopt, and improve. I mean, the Knights couldn't have been the only ones with that point of view.
Well, technically, I got that from a Monty Python sketch. So I don't know if it was the Knights, but that's what the guy in the sketch said, is that it was the motto of the Round Table.
Sure.
It might have been the motto of the British Marines, for all I know. Just saying. So, that is the phenomenon overall. But I would allow me to suggest an idea. I did a little research.
You did research?
I know, crazy, right?
Wow.
Amazing.
Something you don't do all the time. Congratulations, Father.
I think he did extra research because he was all stressed out because I did the research last week, and I'm sorry, honey, I didn't mean to put extra stress on you.
Well, there are certain groups of Native Americans, and the Osage were actually one of them, that believed that there were multiple worlds, and that getting from one to another was not only possible, but it could be done. And in some tribes, and I couldn't find any proof that the Osage were one of them, they had hunters that specialized in going into that other world. And near as I could tell, they weren't loved. The people that hunted the other world were barely tolerated. They were almost outcasts. But if your kid somehow wandered into the other world, you went and talked to Joe Big Crow down the way because he's your only hope of getting him back.
I see.
Joe Big Crow, is that an actual name?
No, he's just...
It sounded Native American to me. And originally I was going to say John Redcorn, and then I remembered he's a character on King of the Hill, and I didn't want to, get in trouble for using a character without appropriately. So I changed him to Joe Red Crow at the very last minute. Or Joe Big Crow, sorry. Anyway, point is...
Now he doesn't know who he's talking about, but there's a crow and...
Point is...
Something. Just go on.
That's besides the point. He was saying...
The point is that you go to the drunk down the street or whatever, the guy that's not liked, and he might be the guy that can rescue your child. And we know, for example, and this kind of brings it back to my levels of reality, we know, for example, that in something like the 1800s, and again, this comes from a story from Forrest Burgess from Astonishing Legends, and I don't know what he's referring to. I don't know what his source material is on it, but he was talking about how and I want to say it's 1300s, is that this girl went missing and her family couldn't find her. And then 3 days later, she turns up.
It was 1800s. I don't think it was
Could have been 1800s.
Back.
Could have been 1800s. Hey, my memory is not as good as it once was. So it 3-8 look alike. Yes, it could be 1800s. But they couldn't find her. And then 3 days later, they find her in her own bed. And she's dirty, But otherwise, she seems fine. And they're like, where did you go? And she's like, I was here, but you guys couldn't see me or hear me. I was calling for you. So maybe it's possible that there is another world. And maybe big cats are able to cross over from time to time. Maybe on accident, maybe on purpose, we don't know. And if that's the case, maybe sometimes they pop out in places they're not supposed to be.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you're thinking not just people, but also animals are popping into places they're not supposed to be.
Right.
Just like Apollo.
Apollo ain't where he's not supposed to be. Apollo's a good kitty. What are you talking about?
No. I'm not saying he's not a good kitty. What I'm saying is he's more special than any other kitties.
But the point is that, so that's what I see as a possibility, is that there are a few things that cross over, or at least cross behind the scenes. And maybe they wind up in the wrong place from time to time.
Fair enough. So that's your theory. You're gonna wrap back around to the multiple layer multiverse.
I just think it explains a lot. I think if that's the way things are, I think it explains a lot. It explains why don't we ever capture Bigfoot? Because he goes home. Where do UFOs come from? They go back home.
Fair enough. That definitely explains a lot, for sure. You're right about that.
Why? Where did the kid go when the old lady told him to poop on the paper? He went over there, and then he made it back home.
And he did not poop on the paper, because he was a good boy.
He was a good boy. But the point is that, to me, it explains a lot. Do I insist it's a solution? No. I posit it as a possible one. So let's get into summaries. What do you think? Myself, I want to believe. God, I want to believe. I want to believe so bad. And I think there's a solution, but I think that we don't know it, and that we are not going to know it because we've passed that. I think that if you could go back 250 years, 350 years, and talk to some native peoples, some original tribesmen living in the area where you might get answers. You might get answers that would make sense. Mm-hmm. But I think that we are too far removed from nature.
Happily, some of us.
To answer that question. So what do I think? Well, I think in some cases, big cats are definitely out there. Whether it's, released captive animals or whatever, certainly it's suggestive that in all of Britain's history, there's never a point where large black cats aren't seen.
Right.
And when I say large black cats, I ain't talking about big kitties like Apollo. I'm talking about a predatory animal of great size.
Right.
So I believe it somewhat. Do I believe that everything is mysterious about it? No. I think some of it is fairly simply solved, especially considering how I love Australia, but man, a week doesn't go by anymore when I don't hear about, and this invasive species isn't in Australia is taking over, and I'm just like, is nothing that lived on that island safe?
Nope. Probably
so, overall, I'd have to say I'm about 50-50 on this. That I think there's stuff out there. Absolutely, there are things out there. And I think that the idea of large predatory animals that haven't been discovered is not completely unbelievable. However, I'm going to say if you kind of can push most of Australia out of the picture, because most of what I've seen or heard sounds like, either misidentification or, invasive species. I think a lot of the United States stuff you can push out of the picture because it's moving species. But I think that you have to wonder about England. I think you have to wonder about certain other places. So, yeah, I'm going to say about 50-50 on this one.
All right, my turn. I'm going next. Sorry, Mom.
You're fine. Go ahead.
So, I'm going to have to say something real quick. There is a possibility that scientists are trying to hide stuff from us and are creating their own type of whatever they want to do with it, or different animals at the zoo are breeding because they're in the wrong cages. I don't know, but
that's a theory. She's I don't know that we were listening to the same conversation. She's got her own whole theory going on over here, Dad.
But I can't be completely sure. I cannot. Because we all know some parts of the states may be hiding some stuff from us, or it's just this whole different realm thing where a different thing's going home, back to us, whatever. Doesn't matter if they're trying to or not. But...
So in other words, you're keeping your options open.
Yes, definitely, but here's my thing. It could definitely just be a mixed breed that is breeded on its own and is starting to breed more often. Then again, they're trying to create remember when I mentioned the saber-toothed tiger earlier? That could also be a thing that escaped from the lab and is now out there. I cannot be completely sure. I cannot. But then there's a whole side of possibilities that it is actually these big alien cats.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I'm gonna have to go 50-50 on this one too, because I can't necessarily prove anything that I'm saying currently, because I am so tired and I do not have the time to do research right now.
But I don't expect you to have an answer by the end of the show, Crystal, and just thoughts. That's all anyone's asking for.
This is my thoughts. I'm bringing them out to the world. I am bringing them out to you guys so you guys understand what I'm saying. Yeah.
Honey?
I think we see things more and more every day with COVID and the world that we're living in. Full on can just be the way that nature is evolving. I have fully decided that we humans as a species have a lot of attitude about what we know, and I would rather say that I don't know what it is, but I know there's stuff out there, and that's just where I'm leaving it this week.
Right.
So you're still with it in that Tommy Lee Jones place of the people are dumb, panicky, stupid animals, and you know it.
Don't we know it? 500
years ago, we knew that the sun revolved around the earth. 5 minutes ago, you knew that there were no aliens on this planet. Imagine what you'll know tomorrow.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm good with that. And that brings us to our goodbyes.
Goodbyes already?
Yep. Thanks as always to our listeners. Love you guys. Cannot tell you that often enough. We're almost to episode 50. We wouldn't have gotten here without you guys.
We are almost halfway through the show. Honestly,
Almost halfway through the show.
No, not halfway through